Otrich, the finance minister, was bragging for 3 months that not 1 ounce of grain would get into Gaza. Well, Hamas has all the food.
They're firing rockets from
Hamas has all the
schools.
Dude, you interrupt every 2 seconds, dude.
Please, let him...
Hamas has all the food they need. This is a war on the civilian population. And then, as is reported, admitted by IDF. By the way, this is admitted by the Israeli government. You can say whatever you want about Haaretz. They denied that they gave the orders, but they admitted that it was the IDF who was shooting at those people. Then after you deny the civilians food for 3 months, then you start shooting at the people who are desperately trying to get some food for them and their kids. So no, listen, I'm sorry, and I guess I am partly rejecting the premise of your question, but let me just say it like this, Charlie. If you're pro-life, and you say
It's a stupid argument. You should not buy this for a second.
Let Dave finish his sentence.
Shut up, bro. It's not
Hamas
it's
is
a
a part
stupid argument. It's a stupid argument. You haven't.
There we go. Dave Smith straight up says, shut up. So this is a video of Dave Smith destroying Charlie Kirk and his boy in Turning Point USA on Israel and Palestine. Really excited to watch this with all of you because Charlie Kirk, you know, he is a decent debater, but he's so sold out on Israel. And I'm very curious to see what he says to Mr. Dave Smith here. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's continue watching.
Heard the argument. What's the argument that's stupid?
Dave,
you're not pro-life.
Guys,
no, what's the argument?
It's Hamas that is not pro-life.
What's the argument? You just called stupid.
Dave,
what's the argument?
This is what.
Hold on 1 second, Charlie.
I know people don't
what's
like
the argument that you?
Not enjoyable to watch. Okay?
What's the argument that you called stupid?
Why don't you finish it, Josh?
Because he doesn't even know what it is. He interrupted me before I even said it. Okay, here's the argument. If you're pro-life, it's not incumbent on you to have a plan for what the mother ought to do with the baby. Like, you don't have to have a plan for daycare and college funds and all that. You just say, hey, I think this option should be off the table. I don't think you have the right to murder the baby while it's inside of you. Likewise, I'm not saying I have to have the perfect plan. If we had more time, I could expound on what I think they should have done. But how about don't deny 1 ounce of grain for 3 months and then shoot at the poor people who are trying to get food?
Josh,
how about you take that option off the table? Is that argument stupid, Josh?
Dave?
Okay, Hamas calls in their founding charter for the death not merely of every Israeli, not merely every Jew, but of every infidel, which they identify as not merely all Christians, but also all Muslims who don't subscribe to their idiosyncratic form of Sunni Sharia supremacism.
Okay, shut up. First of all, the Christians, I'm pretty sure, are living way peacefully under the Arab rule than compared to Israeli rule. Second of all, look, the Zionists, the Israelis, they got very similar things in their government. And these are like active political leaders saying that, hey, we want to get rid of these Arabs. Literally to this day.
So the group in Hamas, the group in Gaza that is not pro-life is Hamas. And Hamas has the unequivocal, and I would argue sole moral culpability for the human shield-induced deaths of all the women, civilians, and babies when they are indiscriminately firing rockets, mortars, and missiles from mosques, from the United Nations schools, and on. That is where the blame goes. The blame goes to Hamas. Once upon a time, anyone with any decent functioning moral compass or any knowledge of international law 101 would have been able to tell you that. So that is where this.
Yeah, once upon a time when the mainstream media controlled the whole narrative, there was no internet. There were no independent people that can make content on what's actually going on. Before a lot of these Palestinian people got voices on the internet, that's the time he's talking about, when they were able to control the narrative.
But again, it's just you pivot to blaming Hamas, and they're the ones who aren't pro-life, as if I was making the claim that Hamas is pro-life. I'm criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu for funding and propping up this horrific terrorist organization. So how are you in one breath going to talk about how terrible they are and then completely remove culpability from the guy who kept them in power intentionally?
I am curious. Got it. I'm curious. I got to interrupt. What is your response to the human shield argument? It has been.
Oh, I get it. So this is a 2 versus 1, huh? Okay.
Proven.
Yes.
It is legit. What is your response to a fact? We don't know how widespread it's done, but I think it's rather that Hamas uses human shields.
Yeah, like it's kind of, you know, if let's say like in a domestic criminal situation, if there was somebody who killed a bunch of people and then they ran into a school and they're like using the kids as human shields, they're hiding behind the kids, and then your local police department came over and said, blow up the school and killed all the kids, you wouldn't go, well, they have no moral responsibility because they were using them as human shields. Yeah, as Bill Burr said in his special, you got to work around that, bro. And Hamas is terrible. Nobody's arguing with that. But that doesn't mean there's no responsibility for the people dropping the bomb.
Got it.
And by the way, again, as you don't want to talk about, how about when they're shooting at people trying to get aid? There were no human shields there.
No, I do want to talk about it.
Go look at a picture of Gaza. The human shields does not describe most of what's happened to Gaza. Yes, there are certain instances. And by the way, Israel also has a bunch of military targets in civilian areas. I'm just saying, that doesn't actually mean it's okay to just, now you have a moral get-out-of-jail-free card to do whatever you want to the poor, innocent people who, as you pointed out, are also victims of Hamas.
Josh.
And that's what people are objecting to.
Josh, what is your response to, because I know there was some pushback online, to the shooting at the aid site with food? Is that as Dave is telling it?
Charlie, honestly, I have not spent too much time on the details, but what I can tell you is this. We know for a fact that at least in
Oh, I am so curious to see what this fella says about it, because it's been proven at this point that these Israeli IDF soldiers are literally shooting at the people coming for food.
until the recent Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is this U.S. organized NGO distributing aid, we know that prior to the establishment of this, Hamas was pilfering and confiscating a shockingly high percentage of the aid that entered Gaza, sometimes well more than 50%. Because that's what they do. They have monopoly of use of force in Gaza, and they were essentially just artificially inflating the prices of the actual Gazans' goods and then stealing it all for themselves. That's what Hamas does. It is a deeply corrupt kleptocracy in addition to being a jihadist hellhole. Now, the new aid group, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is a noble and righteous effort that, guess who opposes it? Hamas. Hamas are the ones who actually have started indiscriminately shooting, even much more so than whatever anecdote Dave Smith is talking about. Hamas is the one that has actually started indiscriminately shooting at this U.S. perpetuated this U.S. orchestrated new aid distribution organization, because Hamas doesn't.
All right, so this distribution organization, there is a fellow who just interviewed with Breaking Points and Tucker Carlson. I forget the name right off the top of my head, but he joined this organization. He is an Army veteran. He has so many awards from the military, and he seemed like a decent individual, and he had many stories. But he came back and basically informed everyone of the war crimes that this organization is committing. So this is just foolish now.
Like the fact that the United States, under Donald Trump, God bless him, has found a way to get around the Hamas monopoly on aid distribution in Gaza.
Is Israel an ally of the United States?
Yes, of course.
No.
Okay, so now we have disagreement. We're going to now figure that out. And then I want to, then indicated in that is Israel influencing American politics? So I'm going to start with Josh, and then we'll go back to Dave. You say Israel is an ally. Spend a minute on that, and then address how some people have concerns that Israel is influencing the U.S. government, and then I'll allow Dave.
If you understand.
So before this, I just want to respond to some of the comments here. I'm live streaming today because I just feel more connected with everyone. I like this so far. So Monchi wrote, Kirk looks as uncomfortable as Trump avoiding the Epstein case. Like literally, this guy is just, I'm gonna play the neutral guy, just gonna do the debate. Whereas he's totally biased. He's fighting against Dave Smith. And then Obsidian says they always use this talking point, but the UN, US intelligence, and the World Food Program all confirmed this was BS. And yeah, the name was Anthony Aguilar. Thank you. And Pauline Case, we have a member on board. Love Dave Smith. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support.
And that we in Western civilization are fundamentally at war with barbarism, barbarism being best represented by the Islamists and Sharia supremacists. When you understand that Western civilization really just is the Bible, there is a special calling to have an ally with a certain part of the Middle East. That's point one. Point two is just the Islamist deterrent point, Charlie, which is that America has faced jihadism time and time again, going back for 40, 50 years. 9/11, obviously the most tragic example. We just saw it again on the streets of Bourbon Street in New Orleans on January 1st, just a few months ago there. If you care about deterring Islamism from conquering Western civilization, a point that you have very astutely been talking about a lot recently on your TV hits and on social media, a very, very important point. If you care about defending Western civilization from the barbarians, you absolutely have to place a special premium on this particular relationship. And then third is that if you actually care as I do, paradoxically, I actually care a lot about China. In fact, I think that America's by far #1 biggest threat this century is China. If you care about effectuating this broader pivot to the Indo-Pacific, as American foreign policy people have been talking about for 20, 30 years now, you have to have some way of stabilizing the Middle East. The way to do that is not to just adopt the stupid and asinine Barack Obama foreign policy of appeasing America's enemies. And the way to do that.
Well, was the Middle East stable before Israel or after Israel? Like, I'll ask you that question. I think it's far more stable before the creation of Israel. Israel caused a lot of the issues in the Middle East. Let's be honest here. A lot of the instability, a lot of the wars, they were for Israel.
Is to embolden your allies. Again, that is the Trump doctrine.
And I agree with one of the comments that says that Islam is an Abrahamic religion. What's the problem here? Because, you know, so much of this Judeo-Christian values, like if you want to say Judeo-Christian is similar because they're Abrahamic religion, then Islam is included in that. If you think Judeo-Christian is like one similar religion, they're literally, it's a contradiction. It's a contradiction. Like Christians believe in Jesus and they believe he is like the leader of that religion. And Jews literally believe the opposite, that he was not a leader. And I think he was a heretic, right? So this Judeo-Christian value nonsense is just, it confuses me.
Oh, we didn't get to the second part of the question. So do you want to just start on the ally and then we'll do,
Yeah.
You can incorporate both,
Well,
Dave. He had 2 answers in a row, so take 3 to 4 minutes.
Well, look, this idea that the great battle of our time is us versus the Islamists, us versus these barbarians, you know, that's really the problem here in the United States of America. Lebanon, that's what you got to worry about. Listen, I think everyone here, all you guys should know this at this point. Our problem in America is the deep state of the United States of America, okay? They're the ones who framed Donald Trump for treason. His own intelligence agencies framed the sitting US president. And you know what that deep state wants, by the way? Permanent war. That's what they always want. That's how
Oh, this is great, man. Now, Dave Smith got it on the money. And I wonder if this turning point event is the same event where Tucker Carlson went on stage and said that, hey, why are the Epstein files not being released? And why can we not discuss that Epstein was definitely related to Israel and Israeli funded? I wonder if it was the same event, because if it was, man, that's got to be a tough one for Charlie Kirk.
they and their friends make their money. And so all of this talk is just so ridiculous, man. I mean, this talk about how, like, if you care about the holy sites in Israel, like, okay, sure. Obviously, Christians and Jews and Muslims have a connection to that land. But that doesn't mean we have to bomb Iran for Israel.
Who's saying that?
That doesn't... Well, we just bombed Iran. That was the first topic. Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't mean that we have to support Israel slaughtering people in Gaza. None of that has anything to do with the holy sites. And in fact, a lot of sites get destroyed when there's bombs flying. But listen, the real problem for America, if you want to even talk about like the Islam taking over America or taking over Europe, well, how did that happen? That happened because we completely destabilized the region, fighting war after war after war that did nothing but slaughter hundreds of thousands of people. And then our Western governments had the most insane open immigration policy that was basically suicidal. We're doing this to ourselves. We're $37 trillion in debt, and we're looking for another enemy to go fight. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, we've spent $20 trillion on empire.
You know, a note on this. So a lot of folks said that September 11th happened because they, you know, Osama bin Laden wanted the United States to go into war with Afghanistan and then just rack up all the debt, trillions and trillions of dollars of debt. I was looking into this, and before September 11th, 2001, first of all, I think we were in a government surplus. How crazy is that? And then if you look at our debt, I think it was like $5 trillion. Compare that to now, it's like $36 trillion. So, you know, because of Israel, did Osama get what he want? Kind of. I mean, look at our debt now. Look at the taxes we pay now. Insane.
And wars. And you know what? We can't tax enough money to pay for it. We can't borrow enough money to pay for it. So what do? We
print more money, inflation.
We print the money. And now you guys are coming out into the world and you're wondering why you're 6 figures in debt from college, and you're getting a job at DoorDash, and the average house goes for 800 grand. Because we've destroyed the currency chasing these monsters that were never any threat to our country.
So
Listen, one quick point. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis couldn't bring down America. Joseph Stalin and the commies couldn't bring down America. The British Empire couldn't bring down America. But you think the Hezbollah in Lebanon are a threat to us? They're a problem for Israel to deal with. We
Say
got
that
our
to
own
the families
problems.
of the Beirut barracks bombing in 1983. Seriously, say that to them. Have you spoken to the families of the people who have been killed in 1983 in Beirut, Lebanon, the people who have been killed by those IEDs in Iraq that you're just casually dismissing? Have you actually spoken to any of these families?
First of all, yes, I have.
The 9/11 families, any of them?
Yes, I have.
Are you aware of Iran's involvement in 9/11?
Yeah, okay. So you're just asking me questions over
Guys,
my attempt to answer them. Stupid.
This is why I'm here. So, right? Why don't we both just take a deep breath, because they want to see a debate where they can make their mind up. Well, actually, to Dave first and then to Josh. Josh is saying, what about all of the Islamist death that they're responsible for? Beirut bombings. You mentioned the Shiite. That's basically the essence of your argument, right, Josh? By saying, did you talk to? He's saying, why are you minimizing this? That would be Josh's contention. Is that fair, Josh?
And 9/11, there's so many examples.
Right. Dave responded to that.
We are officially 100 people live watching. Thank you so much. This is one of my first live streams after a very long time. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Let's get this out to a larger audience. Now let's continue.
And then I will throw it back to Josh.
Well, I certainly don't think I in any way minimized any of those deaths. I made the point that Ronald Reagan still sold weapons to Iran a couple years after that, and I made the point that those roadside weapons were built in Iraq by Shiites there. That's not minimizing it. This is a huge part of the reason why we never should have invaded Iraq to begin with, because we get our bravest young boys killed. It's tens of thousands of them have committed suicide in the last few years, and that doesn't seem to stop anyone from wanting to pursue the next attack. So the point is, right, that I think if we want to really understand this stuff, it's wise to look at what some of the motivating factors for the hatred against us is. All you got to do is listen. Yes, I have talked actually to families of people who have died in Iraq. You know what? Overwhelmingly, they're non-interventionist, anti-war people now. In fact, did you know that in 2008 and in 2012, Dr. Ron Paul got more money from active duty military than all the other candidates combined, including Barack Obama, because the active duty military are actually the ones who are the most hardcore anti-war.
Again,
so don't invoke them to try to sell another war.
But Dave, I'm going to follow.
When I say Israel, I'm talking about the government of Israel. I'm not talking about the people there. And I'm specifically talking about Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud party, who have been in control for most of this time, for most of my lifetime. Yeah, and most of the 21st century. And so when I say they have been constantly pushing America toward more aggressive policies, toward getting in more fights. And just like I always say, if you went out to the bar every single night with your friend, and every night your friend's trying to convince you to get into a fight, and while you're beating a lot of people up, you're also taking a lot of wounds, and you're going to jail, and you're getting in trouble, you got to stop hanging out with that friend. And so I think that my position, I don't believe in wars of aggression and wars of choice. I don't believe in sanctions. I don't believe in that. We should be friends with Israel. We should trade with Israel and have a good relationship with them. But you know what? I also don't believe in welfare, and they shouldn't get another dime of U.S. taxpayer money, and they should not.
So
hold on. They're lobbying.
Charlie going crazy on this one. Yes, Dave Smith. That's exactly what we want. I'm pretty sure Charlie Kirk is funded by AIPAC. It's not confirmed by me. If any of you know that information and can confirm it, please let me know in the comments. But I'm almost positive he's funded by AIPAC. And he's just going crazy right now that in his event, Dave Smith is saying, don't send any more money to Israel. Oh, man.
Their lobby should register as a foreign
That's a good
agent,
segue. Finish that.
and they should stop blackmailing our politics.
Got it.
Level of Israeli control over our politics is frankly pretty undeniable, as much as people try to. Look, just think one example, right, of this. So Donald Trump, you remember at the end of the 12-day war when Donald Trump starts pushing for a ceasefire, and then what does Israel do? They come in and start bombing regime targets, not nuclear sites. They come in and start bombing, and then Donald Trump was furious with Netanyahu. Obviously, he had his most angry moment toward Netanyahu when he said, they both don't know what the F they're doing.
I kind of loved that moment. For the record,
yeah.
I loved it.
I loved that moment too.
That was a hilarious moment. If you haven't watched that clip, go ahead and watch it. But yeah, when he's like, these two people, they don't know what the F they're doing. And honestly, though, it seemed a little fake, like it was right out of a television show. Like he's just trying to be entertaining. He knew what he was doing. Donald Trump is an entertainer. He's been in television for a very long time. And yeah, so it looks like Charlie Kirk is funded by pro-Israel billionaires. Thank you, Obsidian. Also, Pauline Case, one of our members. Thank you for the support. She says Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith appeared at the same major Turning Point USA event earlier this year. That makes sense. I think that's where Tucker Carlson spoke about Epstein and Israel. Thank you so much. Let's continue.
And the next day, he's right back to just advocating that they drop the charges against Netanyahu. He's still going to continue funding Netanyahu unconditionally. You know, anyone else, Donald Trump, would have come up with a nickname for him already and just been smashing them all over the place. He was trying to lure America into a war that Donald Trump didn't want to get into. But then we still got to
did because he literally chose to get involved. Like that was Donald Trump's decision.
Right, but it was also his decision.
The Israelis had a backup
plan. Right,
for...
but it was also his decision to push for a ceasefire and to try to end the thing.
And Israel agreed immediately.
Well, no, they bombed the crap out of him immediately. That's why Trump was so upset.
Simple question.
Correction. They agreed, and then as soon as the ceasefire started, they broke the ceasefire.
I want to phase out U.S. aid to Israel. Okay, I established that. Allegedly, Prime Minister Netanyahu is now getting on board with that as well. Certainly a lot of people in his coalition, too.
I'll believe that when I see it.
Well, he's basically said that, so you should believe it. But what exactly...
A politician saying something...
Let Josh finish his question.
You should believe
Dave,
it.
let Josh finish his question.
If the Israeli government were to agree that that is the best policy, and if the United States were to do that, then what in God's name is your actual problem?
Well, I'm sorry. So if America was not propping up Israel and America was not...
If we wind down the foreign aid, then what is your issue?
Well, there's other military intervention, obviously, so I'm not sure I follow. I'd be very happy to wind down the foreign aid. No, I mean, I do think objectively what Israel's doing to Gaza is horrible. I think,
and I want to talk about Gaza.
They couldn't do it without us.
So make that
case. If they were, I would still be against that.
We have to go fast because people have flights and stuff. But I want to get to this, right? And we still haven't gotten to the final conclusion. So let's.
A simple point that Dave Smith and his friends always like to look over is that when you're just trying to ascribe moral culpability to every single tragic death in Gaza. Charlie, you made this point so well in your recent debates over in England against these highfalutin British faux intellectuals at Cambridge and Oxford, when you said that the moral culpability comes to people who are using human shields. That is just how it works. That is the law of war. That is the law of combat. That is just basic morality and logic 101. So that is essentially how I see Gaza.
I know Dave has plenty to say in response to that. So Dave, take 2 minutes, and then I have a crisp follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, geez, there's a lot there. First of all, look, if you support what Israel's doing in Gaza right now, I would just, like, my advice to you guys is just know that you never have a leg to stand on claiming to be pro-life for the rest of your life. Just saying that. If you, so it's okay to support a policy.
Let's not boo our speaker,
It's
Dave.
okay to support a policy that is killing babies. All of a sudden, killing babies is negotiable. All right, fine. I'm just reading the room.
So, Dave, why don't you...
No, I'm not talking about for Hamas.
Hold on. Back up, Dave. Why don't
I just let you go on this whole long thing?
I know. I'm going to actually help you out here, Dave, okay? What I'm doing, I want you to tell the audience what's going on in Gaza, because some people in the audience don't know what's going on. So don't assume they know, and let's not get back...
okay. Well, I did assume that most people know that lots of babies are being killed in Gaza, but maybe I shouldn't have assumed that.
Don't be sarcastic about it, Dave. Instead... I mean this because
no, I meant that literally. I did assume that.
Loop where they're on social media all the time. Okay, so walk through numbers, walk through what animates you to say something like that.
Well, okay. Well, let me respond to a few of the things that Josh claimed. I mean, if you want to go, there was just.
If people still don't realize that Israel is literally killing women and children, many women and children, like you see these heartbreaking videos. If people still don't know this, I mean, they just have their head in the sand.
Just a major report a couple weeks ago in Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, where they had a bunch of IDF soldiers. They actually had one who went on record who was saying that they were ordered to shoot at crowds of people who were going into
all right, what a libel left-wing filth, by the way.
Josh, I let you talk. Let's please let...
I love it. So they ask for data to back it up. When someone says data or research or article, like, oh, that's fake left-wing BS.
Let Dave make his case.
Well, is the IDF soldier who went on the record also filth?
Probably.
Okay. All right. There you go. So if there, see, you're whatever. That's when you'll criticize the IDF. Look, Josh is just lying when he says that Israel supported Hamas for all those years because they feared there might be a worse alternative. It's just not true. And this has been so widely reported. You don't have to rely on Haaretz. You can rely on all types of reporting, or you can just look at all of the leaders in their own words, what they said. They chose Netanyahu, and this was very controversial in Israel. There were lots of critics of this. Netanyahu thought he had this brilliant idea, which is that he would prop up Hamas and keep them in power. His exact quote was, "We can control the height of the flame." So he was like, we'll keep these terrorists in power, and that way we can tell the entire international community that, look, we have no partner for peace. We have no one to deal with here. And that way we never have to negotiate with the Palestinians. This was the game that he played, and it blew up in his face and really blew up in the Israeli people's face on October 7th. And I've never downplayed October 7th. I don't know. I know, but I'm just making the point that I never have.
Thank you for that, because what happened there is totally
evil. You don't have to downplay any of that. And in fact, I've criticized many other critics of Israel who have downplayed that. It was a horrible day. Awful, atrocious acts were committed by Hamas terrorists. But at the same time, Benjamin Netanyahu was propping those guys up. In fact, according to the Israeli former defense secretary, he sent the head of the Mossad to Qatar to, quote, beg them to continue shipping the money in. Meanwhile, they had a blockade around Gaza. They wouldn't let sugar, they wouldn't let potatoes in, because they claim that's dual use. That could be used to build rockets. So the kids can't get, food. Yet hundreds of millions of dollars in cash directly to Hamas. I guess money doesn't have a dual use. So, the whole mission of this, what you can't even really call a war, because it's not a war, it's the destruction of a captive people. Gaza's been occupied since 1967 by the Israelis, and they're now just slaughtering the people there that's a fact. And
the crazy thing is you're actually hearing claps in the audience, which shows that the tide is turning. Democrats and Republicans, both sides. Weirdly enough, this is the one issue it seems like more and more people are uniting on. Amazing thing to see. I would never have dreamed of seeing this 10 years ago.
And it's under the supposed goal that they want to eliminate Hamas and they want to retrieve the hostages. And yet, Hamas is not being eliminated. The Israeli government is claiming that they've killed 20,000 of their fighters, and yet there's still as many as there were at the beginning.
So Dave, let me ask you the follow-up that I wish that I had an answer to when you were on the Joe Rogan show, but that thing descended into a mess, right? It was madness. So I'm going to try to do it here. This was the best point that I think that for whatever reason it wasn't answered. How then should Israel have responded to October 7th? Be specific. I know you might say, well, don't kill kids, but hold on. How would you say you would be okay for Israel to respond? Because it would be a defensive war at that time. 1,300 of their own kids and women were killed and raped. So please just answer, how then would you be okay with Israel responding to October 7th?
So before Dave Smith answers, what I would probably say, and that's a fair question. If that's a genuine, sincere question, then okay, fine. Fair question. I would say they could do something similar to what they did to Hezbollah. Like, they had beepers installed in their pockets for like 10 years, and then it was very calculated. There was very little casualty. They could have done something like that to people who actually initiated the attack if they really wanted to. I'm just saying, like, that is definitely a possibility. They have the capability to do that. There's no need to just bomb indiscriminately.
So when people break out of Gaza and just start slaughtering civilians in Israel, yes, it was a horrible day and the world feels for those civilians. But at the same time, you have to know, if you're Israel, that the way that you respond to this is going to be how you're characterized in the international community. And so you would at least make some effort to not kill so many civilians. And Americans weren't really moved by, we have to reinstall the King of Kuwait. But they were moved by the nuclear threat. Now, if you go read Coping with Crumbling States or the Clean Break Memo, in the 90s, when the neocons admitted they wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein, they never said it was because he had nuclear weapons. They said he was a problem for Israel in the region. They only made up that lie after 9/11 because they knew that's what would sell you, or maybe not you, you're too young, but sell your moms and dads on going and fighting this war. And by the way, when they talked about wanting to overthrow Iran, it was the same thing. Never had nothing to do with a nuclear threat. That's just the thing they use now as the excuse. So yes, there is tremendous influence by Israel in our government. That doesn't mean I'm subscribing to some crazy conspiracy or telling you to hate Jewish people. I'm Jewish. I'm just saying they have influence. They've used it in a very negative way, and we should reject this insane foreign policy and embrace the foreign policy that Dr. Ron Paul advocated, which is the foreign policy of the founding fathers. Stay out of entangling alliances, stay out of unnecessary wars, be friends with the world, and trade with the world. That's the key to prosperity.
Thank you, Dave. Josh.
Filled multiple.
See, do you hear that laugh? Do you hear that clap? That they like Dave Smith. They like his ideas. This is amazing. This is great news.
He fulfilled multiple campaign promises. The escalator speech in 2015 at Trump Tower, he literally said, I'm not going to let Iran get a nuclear weapon. And guess what? He said, I oppose a neoconservative foreign policy. He did both of those things with Iran. He deprived the Iranian regime of nuclear weapon while not losing a single American sailor, soldier, or Marine while depriving them of nuclear weapons. And finally, Charlie, I'll end on this. Dave Smith, July 8th, 2025. In the last month, Donald Trump has launched a war of aggression on behalf of a foreign government, exploded the debt, announced that he's continuing the Biden policy of arming Ukraine, and covered up a giant child rape operation. So according to my interlocutor, Donald Trump is not just engaging in wars on behalf of a foreign government, he is also covering up the world's giant pedophilic child sex trafficking ring, allegedly, I presume, on behalf of a foreign government as well. So I'm disgusted, frankly, that this man is on stage, but I'll end it at that.
Okay, well, got it. So,
did that have anything to do with Israel Palestine? Like, that was a personal attack on the Epstein files. Who's talking about the Epstein files right now?
you can see peace is hard. I'm trying to keep the peace. Now, Dave, I want to give you an opportunity, about 4 minutes to respond to that. But also, I do want to, now that we had the opening salvos and the Tomahawk missiles launched, let's respond as you see fit. No, and then bring us to the 12-day war, because let's stay focused on that.
Yeah,
we can.
Well, the thing, Charlie,
but defend yourself.
Sure.
Obviously.
Well, the thing is, Charlie, as you may have noticed, and some of you may have seen some of my other debates. Every single time I come up here to debate issues, and they come up here to debate me and my character. It's all they have every single time, because they can't actually take on any of the arguments. And so the most pathetic, low-hanging fruit of, you guys like Trump, this guy said bad things about Trump. Listen, guys, I'm a free American. I supported Donald Trump in this last election. Yes, he did just actively cover up a giant child rapist ring, and I'm going to criticize him for that, okay? And I'm sorry.
Wow, Turning Point USA clapping on that. That's crazy. Charlie Kirk, man, I don't know how this event's going for you. I think Turning Point USA is supposed to be like Donald Trump focused and supporting. So yeah, this ain't the best look for Charlie Kirk. He's sweating right now.
After all these years of us right-wingers saying, protect the children, come on, that's bad for your soul if you don't. You speak up about that. It's horrible what he's doing. And, you know, as far as the actual substance of what Josh said here, which there really wasn't much, but I already pointed this out the last time we debated. His topic about how Sharon was against the war in Iraq is total nonsense. Sharon's envoy initially opposed it when he found out that Bush was going to invade Iraq, not because he didn't want Saddam Hussein to be overthrown, but because he wanted regime change in Iran first. And then when the George W. Bush administration assured him that Iran would come next, they got on board with it and they started pumping out all types of propaganda about how Saddam Hussein's nuclear secret sites that didn't exist. And Benjamin Netanyahu, the longest serving prime minister in Israeli history, that year in 2002, came to Congress and testified under, a congressional testimony that anyone can go watch, and advocated not that the U.S. let Israel do it, but that the U.S. overthrow Saddam Hussein. I believe his words were, I guarantee that peace will spread through the region. And he also advocated that we overthrow Muammar Gaddafi and the mullahs in Iran. So you're just wrong about it. That's not true. And yes, have I been critical of Donald Trump when I think he gets things wrong? Yeah. I mean, I think that's what we should do. This is America. You criticize the government when they get things wrong. And so I don't even know what else.
Josh, wait 1 sec, Josh. I got to keep the peace here. Dave, about a minute-ish.
Okay.
A minute and a half. No, I'm taking the right time. I'm just...
Look, as far as
take about a minute and a half and try to do the 12-day war thing.
Yeah, sure. As far as the 12-day war goes, I mean, look, I'll be honest. Donald Trump, it might be the greatest thing he's ever done in his life that at the end of the 12-day war, after the Iranian response was as weak as it was, and they gave us advanced warning, so there were no American casualties, he started pushing for a ceasefire. And that was great that he did that. But the point is that the war never needed to be launched to begin with. Iran did not have nuclear weapons. Iran, according to all of the intelligence, including our director of national intelligence, until a day after Israel bombed them and she changed her mind, go read the annual threat assessment from earlier this year. Iran had not made the political decision to acquire a nuclear weapon, and they were in negotiations with Donald Trump at the time to bring their enrichment down. There was just no need other than the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu wants that regime overthrown.
Josh, are you okay, or do you think we should do anything to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb?
Anything, sure. Yeah, there's lots of things I think we should do.
Is military action ever justified?
Well, again, yes, there are times when military action is justified, but if you're saying what we could do to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, what we were doing, Donald Trump was in negotiations with them, and I think he should have continued those. And the truth is that the big problem with the JCPOA that Obama got us into was that there were sunset provisions. They opened up a whole new inspections regime. It is not true that the IAEA is saying that Iran was about to get a nuclear weapon. Anybody you want, it's published online. You can go read the conclusion of their last report where they explicitly said Iran does not have nuclear weapons and is not trying to develop them. They are enriching at 60%, and they were in negotiations to maybe bring that down. But when you bring up the fact.
By the way, most people agree that enriching at 60% is not nearly enough to make weapons with. You still need like a year, I believe, to make weapons after that.
The Marines getting killed in 1983. It's actually an interesting. Ronald Reagan, who was president at the time, he wrote about this in his memoir. Now, if you know what Ronald Reagan did, was he pulled out after that. He turned tail and run. And he said in his memoir, he said, I underestimated the irrationality of Middle Eastern politics, and we never should have gotten involved in that. Now, if you want to say that Iran backed them, okay, a couple years after that, Charlie, there was a scandal in the Reagan administration. It was the something Contra, Iran-Contra. That's right. Ronald Reagan was selling weapons to the Iranians a couple years after this happened. So to come back now 40 plus years later and use that as the excuse why we got to go to war.
This is excellent because I learned about this recently. Scott Horton, very, very good historian. He wrote Provoked about the Russia and Ukraine conflict. He was on Tucker Carlson's show recently, and he exposed all of this, the whole history of what happened. And I gotta say, this guy knows his stuff. If you want to learn about the history of a lot of these Middle Eastern conflicts, go listen to that podcast between Scott Horton and Tucker Carlson after this video. I actually did a video on that too, if you want to go watch my reaction to it.
With Iran. I mean, just think about how crazy this is. And the stuff he said about the roadside bombs in Iraq is just not true. It's been debunked. It's more war propaganda that's been debunked. I highly recommend anyone can read the book Enough
Have
Already.
Have you spoken to a
Josh?
1 second. I highly recommend people read the book Enough Already. It is the best book that's been written about the terror wars by Scott Horton.
There you go, Scott Horton. Actually, I really want to go get this book. Enough Already. I think it's on the whole foreign policy with the Middle East. Definitely want to go watch that. Also, thank you, Suleiman Al-Amiri, who did a super chat. Protect Dave Smith at all costs. Free Palestine. Appreciate that, brother.
He has all the footnotes in there. You can go through it yourself. It's completely debunked. Those roadside bombs were built by Shiites in Iraq. Now, some of them did have relationships with Iran, but the majority of Iraq is Shiite. So yes, we invaded the next door country and we got into some fights with the Shiite groups there. But to say that's a reason why we now have to invade Iran or we have to bomb them or something, it just doesn't make any sense.
One or two really quick Chris follow-ups,
Sure.
and then we'll do this. Both sides need to get under good cross-examination. Do you think it would be bad if Iran got a nuclear bomb?
Yes, I think it's
good.
bad. I think it's bad.
And I think we can all agree on that. That is a moral agreement.
I don't think anybody should be allowed to have nuclear weapons secretly.
Right. And so,
boom, shot at Israel. Israel still does not accept. They still deny publicly that they have nuclear weapons. And I learned from many of you in the comments that it's because of the nuclear proliferation agreement. They don't have to be a part of it if technically they don't have it.
How about that?
I will ask Josh about that, because that's a not so subtle dig at Israel. However,
wait, hold on. Are you suggesting that Israel has nuclear weapons?
I don't know, actually. They probably do.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know the intelligence. I'm not that.
Come on. See, Charlie, this kind of stuff makes you look not genuine and a bad actor, because everyone knows this. Come on now.
DNI.
And everyone knows that they stole American intelligence data and secrets to make those bombs, to make those weapons.
But I mean, they probably do. But let me ask you, Dave. Now, another question. What is your now, let's just say, criticism? No U.S. troops were killed. It required no U.S. troops on the ground. There was no war. It lasted 12 days. Fordo was pretty eliminated. I mean, even the Iranians say it. So looking at it now, 12 days later, what is your problem with what seems to be a masterclass in 12 days, in, out, no problem, no U.S. troops, and we've kind of moved on? What would your problem with that be?
You know, I think, and I do think there's something really sick and poisoning about this, is that our country has become so addicted to war that if we launch a war and you go, well, hey, it wasn't a complete catastrophe. I mean, 1 million people didn't die in this one like in Iraq, or hundreds of thousands didn't die in this one like in Afghanistan or Libya or Syria. It's like, okay, look, people died in this war, okay? There were both Iranian civilians and Israeli civilians who died in this war. It was a terrible thing for them and their families. This was a catastrophe. And my point is that the war never needed to be launched to begin with. But there's no reason why we even have to be enemies with Iran. They oppose no, this is a third world country in the Middle East that does not have nuclear weapons, does not have intercontinental ballistic missiles, does not have an air force capable of hitting us with anything. This is Israel's problem. We don't need to be involved in this. Sorry, we got our own issues here. And look, again, I'll give Donald Trump credit that, okay, it didn't turn into a catastrophe. He took the off-ramp when he had the chance. But look, a lot of that was out of Donald Trump's control. The risk of this war, like a lot of people love to, like Josh likes to read my tweets when I was saying this could turn into a catastrophe.
Because you were dead wrong and you look stupid.
Oh.
Josh.
Ad hominem attacks, this is what happens when you can't really debate the point. You start attacking the person. Also, folks, this video is almost over. I just wanted to say this is one of the first live streams I've done after a very long time, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We have almost 200 people live watching with us. Pretty awesome. When this video is done, I do plan on coming back. I'll probably watch more videos with you all. This has been a very enjoyable experience for me. Make sure you like this video and subscribe. Now let's finish this video.
Guys,
Okay.
don't say...
Hold on. No.
Let's de-escalate the stupid stuff.
Actually, what Josh is saying is the lowest IQ argument that anyone can make. I was warning that there's a risk of a catastrophe, and he's saying you're stupid because there wasn't a catastrophe. This is on the level of playing Russian roulette, and if the bullet doesn't go off, you go, see, dummy, you were warning that could go bad. That doesn't prove anything. Listen, for all you guys, you talking about how big and bad the Iranians are and what a scary threat they are, what if they hadn't given us advance notice? What if Iran was actually as suicidal as people like Josh pretend they are? And what if their response had killed a few hundred Americans in the region, which by all military assessments, they are capable of doing? What would Donald Trump have had to do then, Charlie? What would he have done?
I'm the moderator.
No. Okay, sorry.
Like, come on, Dave.
It was a rhetorical question.
I know, but both sides
Moderator. Okay.
are getting tough questions here.
The point is, Donald Trump would have had to respond even harder.
How many would have could-haves are we going to have here? This is not living in reality.
Let's give Josh a chance to respond.
Yes,
but first,
Josh, it didn't happen. It's a counterfactual.
One second.
If you hadn't have had breakfast this morning,
when people talk over each other, they don't like listening to that. So that's why I'm here.